The Life of Cleopatra, a detailed historical journey. Cleopatra VII, one of the most iconic and complex figures in world history, was born in 69 BC in Alexandria, the vibrant cultural and intellectual center of Egypt. Her family, the Ptolemies, was of Greek descent, having ruled Egypt since the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC. Although they were Greek by origin, the Ptolemaic rulers adopted Egyptian traditions and presented themselves as legitimate pharaohs. Cleopatra's reign would become the last chapter in the Ptolemaic dynasty's long history, as Egypt struggled to maintain its independence in the face of the rapidly expanding Roman Empire. Early life and political context. Cleopatra's birth came during a time of political upheaval. Her father, Ptolemy XII Auletes, had been a relatively weak ruler, heavily reliant on Roman support to maintain his throne. His reign was marked by internal strife and external threats, including the rise of rebellious factions within Egypt and the growing influence of Rome in Egyptian affairs. The influence of Rome had already been deeply embedded in Egypt's politics, and Ptolemy Xi's reliance on Roman financial and military assistance showed how vulnerable Egypt had become. Cleopatra was born into a dynasty where familial loyalty and power struggles were common. Her childhood would have been shaped by the intrigue and tension that permeated the Ptolemaic court. While her father's political instability weakened Egypt's position, Cleopatra was able to learn from the example of her predecessors and quickly adapted to the complex political landscape that awaited her. Education and early ambitions. Cleopatra was a remarkable woman by the standards of her time. Highly intelligent, multilingual, and skilled in diplomacy, she was undoubtedly one of the most educated rulers of the ancient world. Cleopatra was fluent in several languages, including Greek, Egyptian, Aramaic, and Hebrew. Unlike most of her Ptolemaic ancestors, who spoke Greek exclusively, Cleopatra chose to embrace Egyptian traditions and was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language. This strategic decision would strengthen her ties with her subjects, who viewed her as a ruler deeply connected to their culture, rather than a foreign monarch. Her education was extensive, covering subjects such as history, philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy. She was also well-versed in the works of prominent Greek philosophers like Aristotle. These studies equipped her with the tools needed to navigate the often dangerous waters of ancient politics. Ascension to the throne. When Ptolemy XII died in 51 BC, Cleopatra, then 18 years old, ascended to the throne. She was crowned as the co-ruler of Egypt alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was only 10 at the time. The Ptolemaic practice of sibling marriage was not uncommon, and Cleopatra was expected to marry her brother as part of the dynastic tradition. However, Cleopatra soon realized that her brother's advisors, who had their own ambitions for power, wanted to sideline her and take control of the throne. This rivalry between Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII led to a fierce political struggle. Cleopatra, with her sharp intellect and assertive leadership, quickly realized that her best hope for maintaining power lay in securing external support. Her main target for such an alliance was none other than Rome, the most powerful state in the Mediterranean. The arrival of Julius Caesar and the beginning of an alliance. In 48 BC, the Roman general Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria after having recently defeated his rival, Pompey, in the Roman Civil War. At this critical moment, Cleopatra saw an opportunity to cement her position as Egypt's sole ruler. According to legend, she had herself smuggled into Caesar's palace rolled up in a carpet, which was unrolled to reveal the beautiful queen. This dramatic entrance is one of the most famous stories in history, symbolizing Cleopatra's cunning and resourcefulness. Cleopatra understood that Caesar's presence in Alexandria could tip the balance of power in her favor. She knew that forming an alliance with him would not only help her defeat her brother, but also provide her with the military and political backing she needed to strengthen her rule. In turn, Caesar saw in Cleopatra a powerful ally who could help him secure his influence over Egypt and maintain the delicate balance of power in the Mediterranean. Cleopatra and Caesar's partnership quickly turned into a romantic relationship. They spent months together in Alexandria, during which Cleopatra gave birth to their son, Ptolemy XV Caesar, known as Caesarion. Although Caesar never publicly acknowledged him as his heir, Cleopatra insisted that Caesarion was his child. This bond solidified the relationship between Cleopatra and Caesar, and she traveled to Rome with him in 46 BC, becoming the first Ptolemaic ruler to ever visit the Roman capital. Political and personal struggles. The relationship between Cleopatra and Julius Caesar was not without its challenges. While Caesar's political influence in Rome was immense, his time in Alexandria was also marked by some public controversy. Cleopatra's visit to Rome raised eyebrows and caused scandal, particularly among the Roman elite, who viewed the alliance between Caesar and Cleopatra with suspicion. Some Romans considered Cleopatra to be a foreign threat to the security of the Roman Republic. During her time in Rome, Cleopatra visited many prominent Roman figures and participated in major public events. Her presence in the heart of the Roman Empire reinforced the image of Cleopatra as a politically astute and capable ruler who was not afraid to stand alongside the most powerful men in the world. However, Caesar's assassination in 44 BC altered the course of Cleopatra's life. His death left her vulnerable, and the political chaos that followed in Rome made her position increasingly precarious. Cleopatra, though devastated by the loss of her most powerful ally, quickly realized that her future depended on forging a new alliance, this time with Mark Antony. The alliance with Mark Antony. After Caesar's death, Rome was divided between Caesar's assassins, the Senate, and his loyalists. Mark Antony, one of Caesar's closest allies, emerged as a key figure in Roman politics. In 41 BC, he traveled to the eastern provinces of the Roman Empire, where he met with Cleopatra in Tarsus. This meeting would mark the beginning of one of the most famous political and romantic alliances in history. Mark Antony and Cleopatra's relationship was much more than personal. It was a strategic political partnership. Antony was facing the growing threat of Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, and Cleopatra's wealth and military resources provided him with a crucial advantage. In return, Cleopatra saw in Antony the means to safeguard her kingdom from the ever-expanding power of Rome. Cleopatra and Antony had 3 children together: Alexander Helios, Ptolemy Philadelphus, and Cleopatra Selene II. The birth of these children was an important symbol of their union, and the fact that Cleopatra bore Antony's heirs further solidified the partnership. Their alliance allowed Cleopatra to position herself as a central figure in the politics of the Eastern Mediterranean. The fall of Antony and Cleopatra. The political landscape in Rome grew increasingly hostile to Antony and Cleopatra. Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, viewed their relationship as a direct challenge to his own power. The growing rivalry between Octavian and Antony eventually led to war. In 31 BC, the two forces met at the Battle of Actium, a naval battle off the coast of Greece. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet was decisively defeated by Octavian's forces, and their hopes of challenging Roman dominance were dashed. In the aftermath of the battle, Antony and Cleopatra returned to Alexandria, where they faced a growing Roman siege. As Octavian's forces closed in on the city, the lovers made a final, desperate decision. Mark Antony, believing Cleopatra had died, a false rumor that spread through Roman circles, fell on his own sword. When Cleopatra learned of Antony's death, she was consumed with grief. The death of Cleopatra. With her kingdom falling apart and facing capture by Octavian, Cleopatra chose to end her life. According to tradition, she committed suicide by allowing a venomous asp, a type of snake, to bite her. However, the exact manner of her death remains uncertain. What is certain is that her death marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the last vestige of Egyptian independence. In 30 BC, Egypt was officially annexed by Rome. Legacy of Cleopatra. Cleopatra's death brought an end to an era that had lasted for nearly 300 years. Her life has become the subject of countless stories, plays, films, and novels, and she remains one of the most captivating figures in history. Cleopatra was more than just a beautiful and seductive queen. She was a shrewd and ambitious ruler who understood the complexities of politics, diplomacy, and survival in a world dominated by male power. Her legacy endures, not only in the political and cultural history of Egypt, but in the collective imagination of the world. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the story. Write in the comments what you want to know next time.